Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to our Thursday live stream. It's funny, last Thursday I said I'll see you next week, and I think I have done three live streams between last Thursday and today. If you missed those, you can find those on our YouTube channel under the live videos section. A couple of really important live streams earlier this week on Monday. I chatted with Dale Whitaker from Washington State about a constitutional amendment that is on the ballot there in Washington right now. It is SJR 8201, and you should vote no on that. It's letting the government invest your money from a payroll tax that was implemented a couple of years ago. Do go back and watch that if you live in Washington State and you're not sure how to vote on SJR 8201. And then on Tuesday, we had some of the board members from Grayson County Conservatives in Texas on to talk about parental rights amendment that is on the Texas voter ballot this year. And that's kind of going to go into some of what we're talking about today. But it's really important for us to remember that anytime the government is going to give us rights or mandate something for us, that's really not liberty and freedom, and that's not actually giving us more rights. Anytime the government is involved, you're likely having something taken away or giving the government a control into your life, your family. Oh, my sound's not on, huh? Let me see if I can fix that. Are you sure it's not on your end? Can anybody else not hear me? Sounds like I'm in a can. Is anybody else having that issue?
Better. Let me know if this is better. So if you're watching, let us know where you are watching from. Yeah, if you have any questions, it sounds off too. Is it still sounding like that? It's better, much better. Okay, cool. We're good. Great. Now we can move on. So let us know where you are watching from. We have got Joy and Mary. Joy is Huckleberry 1202 in the YouTube chat, and Mary are both on our leadership team, and they're in there to chat with you all and banter back and forth with you. If you have questions, please put those in the chat, and I'll be kind of looking down as we're going through this to answer your questions, because I do want the live stream experience to be interactive. That's the whole point of going live, so that we can kind of have a conversation about some of this. And so today is going to be maybe more truth bombs than usual, a little maybe tough love for some folks, but there's this really important legislation that's being proposed in our country right now, and it's very concerning. And I'm especially concerned because the Republicans are all over it. Many of the conservative think tanks are pushing for it, and parental rights groups and organizations, and even Christian organizations, calling this particular legislation biblical. I found a opinion written by a a Christian organization that called this legislation biblical, and I very much disagree with that. I don't believe the Bible tells parents to concede their parental rights to the government, and that's exactly what this bill does. So the bill that I'm talking about, we're going to talk about the App Store Accountability Act, and then we are also going to talk about the latest on what's going on with the blue state chaos. We've got stuff going on in Portland, stuff going on in Washington, and of course, stuff going on in Chicago. And of course, the Democrat governors and attorneys generals in states where it's not happening can't just sit back and do nothing. They've got to get in the game, and they all got to pile on to fight against the big bad Trump administration. So we'll get into that as well. Hi, Tina. Hello from, I see we've got Eastern Washington. I saw somebody in here is at near JBLM. There we go. Yukon. Raphael. Okay. Welcome, you guys. Good to have you with us. So the App Store Accountability Act, I did a full video on this yesterday, and what I'm going to get into today is not repetitive of the video because you can go back and watch that, which I highly recommend that you do. We're going to get into some of the other parts of it, and I have been really just kind of consumed with researching this particular policy over the last couple of days. And I'm not really super techie. My husband works for big tech. My son works for big tech. So whenever I have questions about policy that involves tech stuff or AI, I always go to them because I want to be sure that I'm really informed about my understanding of the policy. And one of the things that I see happening with tech policy is that we have a lot of people that, you know, whether they're legislators at a state level or a federal level, and people at these, you know, conservative think tanks and on these groups on the right that are developing these model policies, they don't really have any tech experience. They've really been in the, you know, political realm and dealing with policy and things like that as their career, not dealing in tech. And so we've got people that maybe don't really understand tech that well, who are making policies and decisions around tech. So I've been having a lot of conversations with my husband, and there are a lot of concerns for this. And, you know, one of the things I've been trying to wrap my arms around is who wins with this legislation. And so we're going to get into that as well. But what I want to start with is so 3 states have now adopted the App Store Accountability Act. That is Texas, Utah, and Louisiana. And I think there are 3 or 4 other states that currently have the policy proposed in state legislation. I think Ohio is one of those, Kentucky as well, perhaps Alabama. I'll have to go look for sure. But we've also got it introduced in Congress. We've got it both in the House and in the Senate. All of these are sponsored by Republicans. It passed in Texas almost unanimously. There was one Republican legislator who voted no on the policy. And I happened to find him as I was searching for things on X and found that he was that one voice that voted no. And he's tweeted a little bit about it. But being at a federal level means that this policy would affect all 50 states. So whereas in Texas, Utah, Louisiana, it only applies to that state. Now, a federal bill, then you wouldn't need it in the states anymore because it's going to apply to all 50 states. And so Senator Mike Lee from Utah has sponsored the Senate version. I think it's John James in the House is sponsored that, and a congressman from Florida, Gus something or other. So I want to start out looking at Mike Lee put out a 1-pager on this bill, and I want to take you guys through it. So first of all, he's saying that, you know, we've got kids and online safety, and we need to find a way to protect kids from predators online and inappropriate content and all of that thing. So what is the solution? The solution is that parents have the right to seek a remedy when their child is exposed to material that is harmful to children. App stores ought to provide parents with effective tools to protect their children, and tools must empower parents and not be grossly negligent to loopholes. This establishes a private right of action for parents alleging injury to a minor as a result of exposure to harmful materials. Relief may include actual and punitive damages, attorney's fees, and other relief deemed appropriate. Establishes a safe harbor for app stores that provide tools to parents, including age verification using secure age category data, parental oversight of app usage, downloads, purchases, etc. Accurate app age rating displays. Requires annual certification of safe harbor, includes congressional oversight authority that mirrors Congressional Review Act and Midnight Rules Relief Authority, establishes a complaint mechanism for parents to report ineffective tools. It prohibits the selling of age category data for any reason. Now, it prohibits the selling of data. but it does not prohibit the sharing of data. First of all, I want to start out with saying the government isn't forcing you as a parent to give your child a smartphone or a device that you can download apps on. That is 100% parent options. And my kids are 19 and above. And so when they were little, they were kind of on the early end of all of this. And so even my youngest kiddos, when I would take them to the grocery store, we didn't have like an iPad or anything like that I could throw in front of them. But I can't tell you guys how often, and you've probably seen this as well, that you go to the grocery store and you see the parent pushing the shopping cart and there's a toddler in the shopping cart on a phone or, an app, something like that, and completely glued to the app. Or you go to a restaurant and the family is having dinner at a restaurant and the kids are on their devices, little kids on their devices. My kids are the age where they had coloring books and they had books to read when we would go to the grocery store or something like that. It was really an experience, a time when you could teach your child. You're going through the produce department and you can talk to them about, this is a banana. What color is a banana? Well, when you put a device in front of your child, you're taking that entire educational experience and that bonding time between a parent and a child, you're taking that out of the picture. And I think that we as parents, and I'm encompassing myself in this as well, because as I look back, I think my husband and I talk about this a lot, is one of our biggest regrets is that we gave our kids these smartphones way earlier than we should have. And you probably have heard a lot of like the big tech people always say, yeah, my kid does not have a phone. My kid does not have access to social media. And that's really smart. But one of the biggest things here is that in this solution, they're talking about giving parents tools. The App Store Accountability Act would mandate, it's a government mandate. It's not the government giving a parent a tool that they can choose to use or not use. This mandates that the age verification must be met for a child to download an app. It is the parent's identity verification and the child's as well. So you are going to be giving your information to these app stores every time your child wants to download something in the form of government ID, credit card, and it could even be biometric data. Now, the group that is pushing this model policy is called the Digital Childhood Alliance. Now, I'm going to go off course here a little bit from my Mike Lee one pager for a few minutes. The Digital Childhood Alliance came on the scene in January of 2025. And this is their it seems like this is their only real piece of legislation. I did catch a video I was watching this morning. Seems like a woman who's, I don't know if she's the founder, some kind of leadership in the Digital Childhood Alliance, was on this video with a Christian podcast. And she was talking about how this was necessary to prevent children from accessing harmful content. And so that's why, they're really trying to push this policy out. And it sounds like she's maybe got a lawsuit with, some big tech, whether it's Apple or Google. I'm not exactly sure, for some kind of harm that was done to her child within an app. So the first point that's interesting is this is a brand new organization and they're pushing this out really, really effectively to a lot of big name organizations, like the Heritage Foundation and Family Policy Council and Moms for Liberty. And they've got all these people writing op-eds all over the country and really pushing for this legislation and calling it parental rights. Well, it's not anything about parental rights. It's a government mandate that's asking for your ID. I tried to figure out like how this Digital Childhood Alliance is funded, because that's always where my mind goes, is what's in it? What's the benefit? Who's benefiting from a policy like this? Because I, as the parent, I already have the option to have parental controls for my child. I can already decide sorry, I can already decide if they can download something or not. We have iPhones, so my kids were all, we did the Apple family or whatever you call it. And my son, being the techie that he is, as he got older, he managed to get around all of those things, which is possible. But I know there's constantly things being developed, and I'm definitely for parental controls tools to be developed, that parents can have access to. I am not okay with a government mandating that every time my child wants to download an app, I have to provide my digital, my whatever, government ID, biometric data. This is definitely a gateway to digital ID. And one of the things, we talk about this all the time at Conservative Ladies, is this is not the end. Like, if this passes, this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. And they'll keep inching and inching and inching along until you have full blown. And the other thing with this too is that you have kids that are going to be really conditioned to just give up their ID, to who knows. And one of the things that my husband and I were talking about yesterday is, what about all of these foreign app developers? Because a lot of these app developers are not within the United States. So they're getting your ID, they're getting all of your data for you and your child. What are they doing with it? Now, we know they can't sell it, but there's nothing prohibiting them from sharing the data. And so I feel like we talk about parental rights, and you hear everybody say, well, we don't co-parent with the government, and these same people are sending their kids to the public schools that are indoctrinating their kids, that are prohibiting parents from accessing critical records from the school. They're hiding gender stuff, and meanwhile the parents are like, I don't co-parent with the government. But you just sent little Susie off to become Stephen at school, and you don't even know. And then we've got something like this where parents are cheering, this is great, it'll protect my child. So it takes your information when you download the app, but the real danger is in the app. And this doesn't change anything that happens in the app. And if you have been in Snapchat or TikTok or any of these apps, you know that the child, it's not downloading the app, it's once they get into the app. So the perfect way to think of this is like, you've locked the front door, but you've left all the windows wide open. And so this doesn't solve the problem. It definitely gives a huge edge to big tech, because they're going to get all this data. They're going to get all of this information. I was in one of my conversations with Grok. I was asking, who benefits most from this, and one of the biggest beneficiary is Apple and Google. Apple and Google stand to gain the most due to their market dominance and ability to absorb compliance costs while leveraging existing systems. The act structure favors incumbents, potentially widening their lead over smaller players. Their influence on shaping commercially reasonable methods further tilts the field. The industry isolation, the industry consolidation trends, like Google, 90% of the Android market, and the Act's focus on established app stores support this. The CCIA is one of the organizations that has a lawsuit against this, have a lot of concerns about costs for smaller app developers, because it's going to be much harder for a smaller app developer to comply with this. The long-term gain for these, Apple and Google, is they could lobby to define standards, cementing their position with this. The secondary beneficiary would be the DCA, the Digital Childhood Alliance, and legislators. The DCA will benefit through influence and funding growth, while legislators gain political capital. However, their gains are contingent on the Act's success and less tangible than tech's financial edge. So for the Digital Childhood Alliance that's pushing this, if they can show that their work in this area is necessary, then they can get donations and things like that, which of course they will use those donations to push further policies. And I don't believe that there's anything nefarious with these people going on, but this isn't protecting kids. It's not about parental rights. And so the messaging and the rhetoric around it is very deceptive. And it's definitely not biblical. Surrendering your parental rights to the government because honestly, I'm just going to say that because you are lazy and don't want to do the hard work of parenting in a digital age. And I get it. It's really difficult. It is the hardest thing about parenting right now because kids want to be on the phones. They want to use Snapchat to communicate with their friends rather than text, which makes it a lot more difficult for parents to oversee that. There's like the disappearing messages and things like that that make it really challenging. Plus, when you let them go into Snapchat, then it opens them up to a whole world of online predators and things like that. But it is our job. And I think parents are going to have to do the hard thing about with the smartphone. I mean, I would say don't give it to your kids to begin with. But you should already be monitoring what your child is downloading, and you shouldn't have to relinquish your data in order for your child to download that. Nobody is forcing parents to give their child a device where they can download this stuff. And so we don't need more government mandates into our family that are only going to continue to get stronger. This is a very dangerous policy. As I've said many times, it is a gateway to digital ID, and it's only going to get worse. It's so discouraging to me to see all of these Republicans just piling onto this and all of these right-leaning groups and organizations pushing this so hard. That it's just discouraging because this is really going in a bad direction. So, what is the answer? This is why I'm talking so much about this, and I mean, we'll be putting out information about this for a while because the only way to stop this is for citizens to get really loud and to share this content, share the information about the App Store Accountability Act with everyone in your networks. Ask people to speak out about it. Ask people to write op-eds in their local papers. If you need help with that, reach out to us at conservativeladiesofamerica.com, and we'll be happy to help you write an op-ed or contact if it's already been proposed in your state. We can help you contact your legislator. But also, I would say, and for our friends in Eastern Washington, you've got two Republican legislators in Washington. You've got Dan Newhouse and Michael Baumgartner. I would reach out to those people, even if they're not in your district, and ask them to oppose this. It's such an uphill battle, but I think if the people make enough noise, and I think you might be able to get some Democrats on board with this as well. So I have written a really detailed blog on this that goes into the bill, what's in the bill, and the lawsuits in Texas, the Texas law that passed, and with everything is linked up in there. So if you want to go into the rabbit hole, it's all there for you on conservativeladiesofamerica.com. Click on blog and you will find it there. So please go check that out. Please help us spread the word. We are small and not very well funded, but we want to deliver truth and transparency to the American people because we do not want big government. We do not want the government in our families. We do not need the government to help us parent. We, the parents, are fully equipped to protect our children. So with that, let's move on to the chaos in the blue places, shall we? Okay. Well, for our Washington friends, your attorney general is busy spending your taxpayer dollars defending Portland and Chicago and real Alberto is in California. So California is in on this too. So don't feel like you're left out. Let's see. I've got a little. This was shared on social media. A.G. Brown is leading a coalition of opposition to Trump's unlawful deployment of National Guard to Chicago. Earlier this week, in the Portland case, there had been a temporary restraining order, and originally it was upheld by a ninth circuit judge? I forget who the judge was. It was a Trump appointee judge. but then on, like, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, the Ninth Circuit actually ruled in favor of Trump and said he could send in the troops. And so that spurred a response from Washington Attorney General Nick Brown. Other states are Arizona, which I think, doesn't Arizona have a Republican Attorney General? Hawaii, Nevada, and then I think there are several more. I think there's a coalition of like 20 or 24 Democrat states that are pigpiling on to this. And keep in mind, every time they're doing this, it costs money. So they're just like racking up the legal bill there in all of these attorney general's office. It's probably not that big since you've got like such a huge coalition all going in on it together. But their argument that they're saying here is that the ruling dramatically expands presidential power. The National Guard should only be federalized in extraordinary cases, rebellion, invasion, or when federal law can't be enforced. Well, I think it's pretty safe to say that federal law has not been able to be enforced in Portland, and the Portland government and their law enforcement have not done their job and made it so that ICE could do their job. So they have left Trump no choice but to come in and do this. And I think the court was probably seeing that that Portland wasn't taking action. Like there had been like 2 weeks of this legal battle kind of going on with the temporary restraining order, and Portland officials had done nothing to bring down the chaos. So, Attorney General Brown said, "We know this is wrong. We know this is un-American." Well, un-American is allowing these domestic terrorist groups and anarchists to bring chaos and anarchy into your city where they can't live peacefully, and disrupts businesses and things like that. So, that's where things are at in Portland right now. And there is another hearing. I believe it's later. It's like of the 27th or 29th. So what's that? Probably Monday or Wednesday. So we'll see what happens there. I'm thinking, though, if you've been watching what's going on in Portland, things aren't getting better. So I feel like Trump probably has a pretty good case, pretty good chance of winning this next round as well. And then in Chicago, on the 21st, Washington Attorney General Nick Brown co-led an amicus brief with Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown. So we've got Nick and Tony, urging the Supreme Court to deny Trump's request to lift the block on the National Guard deployment to Chicago. So we've got sort of a similar situation that's going on, Chicago and Portland. The Portland coalition is Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Oregon, New York, even Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is in on that. Kentucky Governor and Kansas Governor, and I don't know, are Kentucky and Kansas Republican or Democrat? I think they're both Democrat. And then, of course, you've got the same situation going on in Chicago where they're not doing anything to rein things in and clean things up and get things back in order. So I don't really see that that Trump has any choice but to go in. I'm not so much for federalizing these kinds of things. I think that is, it's kind of setting a concerning precedent, but all of these places have shown that they're not going to take care of things. And this is really a repeat of what we saw in 2020. And I think, at least I remember from the time being in Washington when you had the Summer of Love and Chaz Chop going on Capitol Hill, and they gave up the West. I think it was the West precinct or the East precinct. I forget. But the Seattle Police Department gave up one of their precincts to the Antifa people and everybody that was creating chaos. And so, and the mayor, Jenny Durkin, at the time would not let the Trump administration come in. And so that's why they didn't come in. And so I think this go around, there's a little bit more pressure on Trump to, even if you're not wanted to go in, we need your help. We need to clean these areas up. And I think there's definitely an appetite within the Trump administration to do that. So while I don't love the idea, I think in this case, there's really no other choice. And we talked last week on the live stream about the coalition that all of these Democrats are forming to resist the Trump administration. They've actually, in Friday's video, I forget what they call it, the something alliance, where they're all coming together to, it's a healthcare alliance thing. Maybe that's what it's called. The Governor's Healthcare Alliance, I think is what it is called. And they're basically setting up a parallel government as far as healthcare stuff goes. So they're even talking about, they will attend global meetings and things and events and things like that as an alliance. So they're in parallel to HHS and the CDC, which is kind of scary. And I think I think what we're going to see is that's going to continue to grow, and they're going to continue in other policy areas to build this alliance and basically this coalition against the federal government. And what I think is really scary about it is that they're legislating a lot of this stuff. California just did it. Washington is proposing it. I haven't really looked too much into some of these other states, but what that means is that this will outlive the Trump administration. And that's very scary. And I think it's really important for citizens to consider what this might mean for the future of our country. Because I know it's easy to sort of say, casually that, yeah, it'd be okay if we have, separate the, states, have a secession, and that's fine. That it would be very bad. It's not ideal for our country. It would have a lot of ramifications for us as citizens. And, sometimes I flippantly say, I wish DeSantis would build a wall for Florida so that none of the policies from the rest of the country could get into our state. But obviously I am just joking about that. But this is very concerning. So if you live in a blue state or even a purple state like Arizona, where you see the Arizona Attorney General is jumping on to some of these amicus brief, amici, I think you say amici brief when it's plural, that's jumping in there. And, you've got Katie, is her name? Katie Hobbs is the Arizona governor. And she's totally left. But you got Andy Biggs is running for governor. I believe that would be for 2026. And he would be a great governor for Arizona. That would be amazing to see. I know Charlie Kirk was really supportive of him and was really working hard to help him win. So hopefully a lot of people will step up into that gap and try to get Andy Biggs over the line in Arizona. But these are all things that are gonna, I think, bubbling up. And I think over the next few years, we're gonna see things really, really shift. And so I really want to encourage you as a citizen. Our entire leadership team, we're just a bunch of citizens who were impacted by laws or regulations, or somehow the government was impacting our lives in a negative way. Most of us through COVID really had sort of an awakening, and that's what spurred us to action and to really get involved. And I've never been involved in legislation until I came face to face with Washington State's anti-parent laws. And that's when I wanted to know, where did these come from? Who was responsible for this? And kind of, it's weird. I can only say it's a God thing that he's given me sort of this obsession, I will say, of digging into legislation and learning about what these policies are. And anyone can do it. Right. And so if something is, if you've been impacted, I would just encourage you to get involved in some way, because we are, people like us, just regular citizens, we're up against a really powerful machine, the government and political machine, which when I say political machine, I'm wrapping into that like these really well-funded organizations and think tanks that are pushing policies like the App Store Accountability Act and many others. And just like we see with like Everytown and Giffords with the gun control policies, we have that on the right too. They have their same model policies that get copy pasted to other states. And that's really the goal of these organizations, is to push out these policies all around the country. And, there's a benefit to legislators when they work with these organizations. There's a benefit to the organization because then they have some sort of relevance, which equals funding. And so you and I, the citizens, we're the little guys, and we're the ones that suffer from this kind of stuff. And all of these, my take on legislation and policies, I guess altogether, is less is more. Like, especially when I think of like Washington State, let's just start by repealing a bunch of stuff. We don't need any new laws. We just need to repeal a bunch of bad laws that are harming the citizens. And that probably needs to be done at a federal level as well. And, I've been watching, we're in a government shutdown, but you'd be amazed at how many bills have gotten dropped in, 20 days into the shutdown, and there's hundreds of bills that these legislators are dropping. So they're not stopping filing their bills, but a lot of these bills are just stupid and unnecessary. It's like, why do you need to do more laws and regulations and stupid days and acknowledgments? And it's not serving the people. And it's unfortunate, and I wish more people were aware of that, because if enough of us made enough noise, I think we could change things. So I would encourage you to get involved in some way. There are local elections happening right now, so please make sure that you vote. Even if you think that your vote doesn't count, please vote, especially to the people in Texas. There's a bunch of bad constitutional amendments on your ballot. And if you don't vote because they're bad and you're just like, yeah, I don't want those, so I'm not going to vote, that is a vote for those amendments. So please vote no on those amendments. And as Governor Ron DeSantis said last year, when we had a bunch of constitutional amendments on our ballot, he said, if you don't know about the amendment, just vote no. It's always better to vote no. Gosh, he's rare, isn't he? It's going to be sad when he's not our governor anymore. And hopefully we will get someone that's at least close to as conservative and small government as DeSantis is. So make sure you vote, get involved in some way, attend your school board meeting, attend your city council meeting. Those are really good and really not too time consuming ways to get involved. And it really matters. Nobody on the right, often very few people, I shouldn't say nobody, very few people show up for school board meetings or city council meetings. And we really need to do that. And it's only our fault. We only have ourselves to blame for why things are going the way that they are, because we have let these people run away with our government and our political system. So thank you so much for joining me. I will be back. Will I be back next Thursday? I will be back next Thursday. And so I'll see you then. If you are not already, please do subscribe to our Substack. I'm looking for the link here. This is the best way to get breaking alerts and calls to action. When it goes out of our Substack, if you have the app, it'll push out to your app, or it will go to your email inbox. And we put out a lot of content there. You can also find stuff on our website, conservativeladiesofamerica.com. It was great to see you today. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Please do share this video so people can watch the replay and learn about the App Store Accountability Act. If you haven't seen the video I did yesterday on that, please go to our YouTube channel and take a look at that video and share it out. This is really important, and the only way that we can stop it is if citizens make a lot of noise and let everybody know. So have a great weekend, guys. I'll see you next week.